Hello and welcome to the video guide on how to complete formal assessments through Microsoft Teams and Microsoft Forms. Obviously, this is a bit more challenging and has a few more steps involved than simply just answering questions on a piece of paper in front of you in the exam hall. But as long as you follow every step, make sure you're reading and listening to instructions and you allow a bit of patience for upload and download times, you shouldn't encounter any problems. So let's have a look at the type of things that you'll be seeing together. So here I am in Microsoft Teams, and you'll just find your exam in a few places. Maybe it's something that's been shared by your teacher directly to you as a link, or maybe it's something that's been put into your assignments. We're going to have a look at an example of where it's been put in our assignments. So I'm going to the class where and I'm expecting my exam, and here it is. It even has the tag exam, Easter Mock Paper 3. So I'm going to go into my exam, and there's a few things here, so let's talk about them one by one. I've got follow the link and submit answers within, and use the PDF below for reference. So I have a number of PDFs here which are going to be useful for me to tackle this exam. First thing I have is I have the exam itself. So that's really useful because I can be reading all of the questions there. Now, often what I would do is I would just sit down now with the time allotted to me and I would answer all of these questions in my exercise book or on a piece of paper, and I would make it really clear what I'm answering. So I'd write down 1 and then A for this first question we have here, and then 1B and so far, and answer that question, and I would just run through all of the tests like that. I think that's a better simulation of the exam because in the exam, you're going to be sat down there writing, and you're not going to be uploading things every 10 minutes or so. So, personally, I think that's the best way to do it, and it's the best simulation of the exam, which is the point of these mocks. But you do what's best for you. We can close this down, and we can also look at some of the other resources that are put there. We have our formula sheets or whatever supplementary materials might be needed for the exam. And you might even have things like graph paper or other extra materials which are going to be useful for answering some of the questions. So if you have the ability to, you can print that out. If not, you'll just have to use what you have and do the best to replicate and simulate this graph paper using the squares in your exercise book or something like that. Let's have a look at some of the other things that are here. What we have is we have a link to actually where we submit the exam. So let's click on this link and check it out. So what we have here is we have our actual exam. Now you'll notice here, there's actually, this is spinning round and round and round. It's taking actually quite a long time to load. Now, if I'm just sat there waiting for that to load, well, I know it's question number 1. So what I can do is I can just go back to my assignment and my PDF reference sheet, and I can see what it's meant to say. Oh, it's question 1 saying a practical physics textbook states that measurements may be given a precise value for the quantity of, and so on. I don't need to read that for you. So I can just go back and check that out. Oh, and in the meantime, it's actually loaded. Something here is with answering these questions on Teams and Microsoft Forms, because especially in this climate, there's so many people online at the moment, this might actually be an exercise of patience. Sometimes things will take a long time to load, to download like that image did there, but luckily we had the backup of using the PDF file here so we could check out the questions that maybe we couldn't see. Another way to maybe fix this problem is to just give the page a refresh, and sometimes they load a little bit quicker. So we notice that all of question 1 is here, all of question 2 is here, which some of these bigger ones are actually more difficult to read in the forms page. So that's why it's really useful to go back to this document here, because you can zoom in and things like that, and have a closer look at what the question is. Bit more challenging to see here on the form, and so on. Now, once you've completed all your questions in your exercise book or Word documents, whatever you might have used, it's time to actually upload our file. So I'm going to upload my answer for question 1 over here. And I'm going to show you a couple of ways we can do that next. So let's talk about how you can actually submit the answers to these questions. And that's all going to be done on the forms link, which you've been shared to through your assignment or by your teacher directly. Now, the questions might come in a few forms. A lot of them are going to have this upload file link, which we're going to talk about today. And then other questions might just have a box that you tick or a space that you type in. And I think they're quite intuitive and easy to use. It's these questions that are a little bit more complicated. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to get your question and put it in a place in your computer. So here we go. Some of those answers you might have decided to write in Word documents or something like that. Maybe that's what you find easiest. And others you might have uploaded as a picture that you took with your camera or you sent over from your phone or something like that. With your photos, it's really useful to double check that you've actually got them orientated the right way, because that makes life a lot easier for your teacher and they don't have to hurt their neck trying to have a look at your answers, because it becomes a lot more difficult for them to turn that around. So it's helpful if you double check beforehand that's the right way. It's also helpful if you make sure you give them sensible names, not only for your teacher, but also for you, for your future reference. It's just good practice to keep things organized. It only takes a few seconds. I've named this question 1 answer, so we know which question it's answering, and ATG, so we know who it's from. My question 2, which is the Word document, has a similar naming format. And that doesn't have to be checked, it's the right way around because it's a Word document. So let's have a look at uploading the files. So we have them all in place and we know they're organized. Then we just have to simply press upload file. And for question 1, I'm going to upload the file that is relevant to question 1. Now you can see that sometimes there's actually issues here, and sometimes this can actually take a while to respond. With all of these questions that you're answering and you're uploading on Microsoft Teams, sometimes a little bit of patience is required. Yeah? I may have to try and close this even and attempt it again. So let's give that another go. A really good example of some of the problems you might hit into. Maybe you've got too many windows open on your computer. Maybe that's causing a problem. Shut down things that are unnecessary. So we can see that's uploaded there. Sometimes that may take a really long time. Just try and give it some patience. And we're going to upload number 2 here. Wonderful. Now most of our exams here are going to require you to actually have uploaded for everything. So I've put answers in for the other questions as well. And once you've got everything there, you can press submit. And it's also worth noting that you can actually upload a limit of 10 for each question. So if something took over a couple of or 2 or 3 photos, you can upload those 2 or 3 photos and just make sure you sensibly number those in order like we did there. So at the end of it, I can just hit submit. That should way around, and you should see a screen that looks similar to this. Thanks, your response was submitted. You can press view results, but it's not going to tell you anything until your teacher's had a chance to actually have a look and give you feedback on these questions. After you've done that, it can be helpful for your teacher to know to go back into assignments where we started, and you can hand in, and you could just put a little comment even, or just press that hand in so we know that you've done that successfully. Now, if you're still having a few problems and you've refreshed the page a few times and you've given it patience for uploads and things like that, and you're still getting nowhere with it, if it is one of those rare scenarios, here's a couple of alternatives you can do to make sure that you do get your exam responses in on time. You could choose to upload your answers in a sensible place, again, with accurate titles to reflect the content of each of those files like we did before. You could do this with a OneDrive link shared with your teacher. You could hand in with the exam assignment, or you could add it to your personal notebook, making sure you're not putting it in the collaborative space. And I think that's a sensible order to try those things as well. Just whichever one you do, inform your teacher and let them know where your exam is. But I think these are steps that we should only really have to come to if there's been serious technical problems, which can be quite rare. I think if we follow all of the previous steps I've talked about and we've taken the time to listen to them, we've taken the time to give patience for our uploads, and we've refreshed the page if we're having real issues. I think we should be able to hand them in just like everybody else. So hopefully this guide has had enough steps in and we've gone slow enough to get us through and show us how to get these assignments done. As I said at the start, I know it's more challenging than with the pen and paper in front of you, but if we follow these steps, it can be quite simple, both for you to upload and hand in your responses and for your teacher to give you feedback based on how well you've done, and you can use that to then improve. If you have any more questions, please just comment them, but I think most of them should have been covered in this video. Thank you.